My boyfriend, 26-year-old, and I, 27-year-old, have been together for a little under a year. It was the most beautiful and genuine relationship I have had so far. I'm talking instant connection, reliability, consistency, etc. He was very caring, would pick me up in the dead of night wherever I was, and genuinely seemed like he loved me. He was also the first partner I ever integrated into my family, and they absolutely adored him. This meant a lot since most of my family is of old age, and I wanted to be sure to only introduce a partner I'd be sure to spend my life with, to not distress them. Everything started going awry in December. He'd stay out late, turn off his phone when out, while simultaneously seeming glued to his phone whenever we were home, and just generally became unreliable, uncaring. He is currently in grad school and has been failing a few of his courses since the beginning of the month. He complained about feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. This seemed odd to me as he spent a lot of time on the computer studying, or so I thought. We've been getting into fights a lot, mostly because his ex-girlfriend, 25-year-old, is still part of his friend group, which made me insecure as his friends never got along with me beyond surface level. Still, he assured me that he was still no contact with her, that he had gotten cheated on by her and wanted nothing to do with her. Well, on Friday he told me he'd be out writing his thesis with a colleague. I went about my day but noticed he had his cell turned off, or blocked my number from calling him. No clue. When I got home around 6 hours since he left and he was nowhere to be found, I called his colleague. My boyfriend hasn't even texted him in weeks. I am not proud of what I did next, but I wanted clarity and went through his tablet. Turns out he has been in contact with his ex again. Not a few messages or anything, but 9-hour-long calls, multiple times a week, constant texting, meeting up, all while I was sleeping in the next room. I also saw that he was out with her, at that point driving around in his car for the past 7 hours. It was bad, but not a match to what I found in his text messages. Endless messages with his friends, telling them we were already broken up for weeks, and I was refusing to move out, trying to manipulate him by forcing him to spend Christmas with my family and inviting myself to his family celebrations. Telling his ex as well as his friends how annoying I am, calling me names including the C word and talking about wanting to get rid of me. And the worst part, his mother knew. She had been messaging with the ex herself, telling her she'd always be a part of the family and how glad she is that his ex is back in his life. All while she was talking with me about how I'm a better match for my boyfriend and inviting me to their Christmas dinners. At that point, I wanted to confront him and was waiting at home for him. It was already 1 a.m. and he acted like nothing ever happened. Kept lying even when I asked him to just get it over with and tell the truth. We were sitting on the couch until 7 a.m. and he didn't budge. Kept saying that his ex is still in a relationship with her affair partner and things were strictly platonic. After we got up, he kept lamenting that I am the love of his life. He still wanted to propose and have kids next year. Crying his eyes out, but at the same time telling me he mentally broke up with me mid-December and told his friend group exactly that. I also found out one of his friends has set him up on blind dates while we were still together and actively sleeping with each other. I am beyond disgusted and have no idea how to move on from this. I keep thinking about how he had walked me to the train on Friday, kissed me, told me I was the love of his life, and then went to meet up with his ex. How do I move on with this? Is there anything left to do to somehow cope with this? Any advice welcome. I'm in shambles. Edit, clarity. We are obviously broken up since many here ask why I haven't broken up with him yet, even if he didn't give me the satisfaction of letting me do the breaking up by saying he considered us broken up for weeks. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Confront him, the mother, and the friend group, saying you know they are covering for him. Then start dropping quotes. Hopefully you took pictures and such. Then message the girlfriend and let her know she ruined a perfectly good relationship and send them all screenshots of what they said. Go scorched earth. If your name is on the lease, kick him out. If not, when he goes out again, pack your stuff and leave after you notify everyone and all of your mutuals plus his friend group that you know what happened. You saw it all, and you thought they were people and not some monsters who help perpetuate someone cheating in a relationship. Comment 2. He's a freak. As much as it hurts, be thrilled that you found out who he truly is now. Lots of people don't until they're married with kids and have wasted 20 years with the person. You dodged such a massive bullet. Do something to celebrate and cheer yourself up. Treat yourself. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I've got quite the update for you all. So after the whole ordeal with my now ex-boyfriend, things took an even crazier turn. Remember how I mentioned his ex was still in his friend group? Well, it turns out she wasn't just back in his life as a friend. They were planning to get back together officially. But here's the kicker. She was still with her affair partner, the same guy she cheated on my ex with. I found this out because one of his friends, who I thought disliked me, actually reached out. He felt guilty about the whole situation and spilled the beans. Apparently, my ex and his ex were waiting for the right time to break it off with their current partners. Talk about a plot twist. Now let's rewind a bit to give you some context. My ex always had this thing about being the good guy. He hated confrontation and would do anything to avoid it. That's why he never officially broke up with me and why he was sneaking around with his ex. He wanted to maintain this image of the perfect boyfriend, even though it was all a lie. But back to the juicy stuff. After I found out about their plan, I was furious. I confronted him again, and this time he couldn't deny it. His face went white as a sheet when I told him I knew everything. He tried to explain, saying he was confused and didn't know what he wanted. But I wasn't having any of it. The confrontation was intense. I told him I knew about the blind dates, the lies, and his mother's involvement. He tried to apologize, but it was too little, too late. I was done. Now here's where the compromise comes in. I had to find a way to live with the fact that I was lied to and betrayed by someone I trusted. I had to accept that the relationship I thought was genuine was a sham. But I also had to find a way to move on and not let this consume me. So I decided to focus on myself. I started going to therapy, which has been a huge help. I've been reconnecting with old friends and picking up hobbies that I had put aside for the relationship. It's been a process, but I'm slowly rebuilding my life. And as for my ex, well, he's still with his ex. But from what I've heard, things aren't going so well. Her affair partner found out about their plan, and now there's a whole new drama unfolding there. But that's not my circus anymore. I've also been reflecting on the red flags I ignored, like how he would get defensive when I asked about his ex, or how he would go silent when I brought up future plans. I realized I was so caught up in the idea of the perfect relationship that I ignored the signs that it was anything but. It's been a tough couple of weeks, but I'm getting through it. I've learned a lot about myself and what I want in a relationship, and I'm not going to settle for anything less than what I deserve. I order lunch at my BF's house, and his dad yells at me for not waiting for dinner. Oh boy, he lives to regret it. I, 18-year-old female, and my boyfriend, 19-year-old male, have been dating for 2 years now. I have never had any real problems with his parents, and they're usually very nice and friendly. Today was New Year's Day, and we both slept over at a friend's house. I decided to head back to his house with him at around 2 p.m. just to hang out. His dad, who was the only one home at the time, then came by and asked if I was going to be around for dinner. I said yes. By then, I already had food on the way since I had not eaten anything yet that day, and I wanted to have lunch. I assumed my boyfriend had told his dad since I had also gotten lunch for his brother. Again, this was lunch. None of us had eaten yet that day. His dad leaves and goes to the grocery store to get stuff for dinner, and the food gets here a little before his dad returns. When his dad walked in, we were still in the middle of eating, and it was around 3:30 p.m. He sees the food on the table and without even asking any questions, immediately screams, "Are you f***ing kidding me?" He then calls me by name and yells, "OP, I just went to the f***ing store to get dinner." Which, yes, dinner, which I had assumed was much later, but at that point I couldn't even say anything. I was just so shocked and shaken up because he had never spoken to me like this before. We weren't even very close to begin with, so I was floored. I kind of just stared at my boyfriend while he proceeded to yell from the other room. After he finished yelling and went upstairs, I immediately picked up my stuff and said goodbye to my boyfriend, who was very apologetic, and left. My boyfriend told me later he had a conversation with his parents once his mom returned home about how his dad spoke to me was inappropriate. His dad immediately flips and repeats how what I did was rude. And his mom chimes in too. I just bought both of your sons lunch, but okay. My boyfriend tries to explain to them how it was just lunch, and we were still planning on eating dinner, but his mom wouldn't let it go even after that, saying that if I was going to be a part of this family, she needed to teach me some manners or something. Even his dad eventually admitted he was wrong, but his mom would not let it go. I'm just so upset. I don't want to feel crazy for knowing that he shouldn't have spoken to me like that, and I don't want his mom to think I'm disrespectful. But I'm afraid the next time I go to his house, their mom is going to lecture me. How would you handle this? I just need advice. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This is ridiculous. So you all ate breakfast and lunch combined at 3:30. When he got home from the store, was he planning on eating dinner within the hour? Especially with two young men, your boyfriend and his brother, I'm sure they would be plenty hungry again by like 7 p.m. or whatever. Even if mom and dad wanted to eat at 5 p.m., you all could have leftovers a little later. The only thing that confuses me is if someone had asked if I was going to be around for dinner, I would have responded, yes, we just ordered a late lunch since we haven't eaten today, but dinner would be great. The response by the parents is unhinged, like dad could be annoyed at the lack of communication. I'm a mom, and I would have been, but I'm also flexible, and teenagers eat a lot. I'm sure the groceries would have kept until dinner tomorrow too. Comment 2. I'm 35 and I would never dream of screaming at my kids, their partners, or anyone in the way that the dad did to you. Don't go over there anymore. You have a right to boundaries and being treated with respect. If your boyfriend and his brother want to visit you, then let them come to you, but do not go back to their home. The mom saying she has to teach you some manners should try speaking to your actual parents, if you have a healthy parental relationship, because that shoot would not fly with me if someone spoke to my child that way. It's purely toxic and hurtful of them to treat anyone that way. I feel extremely bad for your boyfriend and his siblings. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a wild couple of weeks since the New Year's Day incident at my boyfriend's house, and a lot has happened that I need to get off my chest. So, after the whole blow-up with his dad yelling at me for ordering lunch, things just spiraled. My boyfriend, bless his heart, tried to smooth things over with his parents. He reminded them of all the times I'd been there for their family, like when I helped his younger brother with his science project last semester. I thought that might help them remember I'm not some rude girlfriend out to disrespect them. But nope, it didn't work. His mom, who had always been kind of cold to me but never outright mean, took it to a whole new level. She started bringing up stuff from the past, like the time I accidentally spilled soda on their couch. I had cleaned it up and apologized a million times, but now it was like I'd committed a major crime. Then, just last week, my boyfriend's dad had to go on a business trip and his mom invited me over for dinner. I was hesitant, but my boyfriend convinced me it was her way of trying to make peace. Boy, was I wrong. I got there, and dinner was super tense. His mom had made this big show of cooking my favorite dish, but the atmosphere was anything but welcoming. Halfway through the meal, she started questioning me about my future plans, my family, and even my grades. It felt like an interrogation, not a dinner. And then, out of nowhere, she accused me of using her son. She said she'd seen a text on my boyfriend's phone from me talking about a scholarship I was trying to get, and she twisted it into me being with him just for his family's connections. I was floored. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years because we love each other, not because of what his parents could do for me. My boyfriend, who had been quiet most of the meal, finally lost it. He told his mom that she was out of line and that he couldn't believe she would say such things about me. He reminded her of the time I'd stayed up all night with him when he was sick, even when I had an exam the next day. But she just wouldn't listen. The argument got so heated that I just couldn't take it anymore. I left the house in tears, with my boyfriend right behind me. He was apologizing profusely, saying he didn't know his mom would go that far, and he was just as shocked as I was. Since then, my boyfriend has been staying at my place. He's been talking to his parents, trying to get them to see reason, but it's like they've made up their minds about me. His dad, who had apologized for yelling at me over the lunch incident, now seems to be siding with his wife again. It's like they've forgotten all the good times we've had together. Like the family barbecues where I helped his mom cook, or the time I helped his dad fix their computer. It's as if none of that matters anymore. My boyfriend is caught in the middle, and I can tell it's tearing him up. He loves his parents, but he's also standing by me, which I'm so grateful for. We're trying to figure out what to do next, but it's hard when it feels like his parents are against us. Husband stops working after we get married, and I pay for everything so he can spoil his kids. Oh boy. I separate our finances and find out he's secretly funneling money into a separate account for his daughter's postgraduate degree overseas. Just so things make sense, this is in Australia. So I have a daughter, 18-year-old female from a previous marriage, and my husband has a daughter and a son from a previous marriage, 19-year-old female and 22-year-old male, respectively. My husband and I got married 16 years ago, and I have always been the breadwinner. My husband stopped working soon after we got married, since I make more than enough for all of us. This arrangement has been fine for all of us, since I am more than happy to provide. But recently there have been some issues. We bought the two older kids quite expensive cars for their 18th birthdays. Once they learned how to drive a bit, and have put money aside for their future mortgages. We are also paying for university. They both have been lucky enough to get into pretty nice colleges, so naturally it is expensive, but we are blessed to be able to afford it. The issues that have arisen are that, 1. My daughter is starting to think about university now, and really romanticizes the idea of going to a prestigious university, potentially overseas. She has already gotten early acceptance into a couple. The problem is my husband has been trying to deter her and saying things like, "Isn't a regular university good enough for you?" And, "Do we really need to waste money on all those university fees when you could get the same at a cheaper university?" Now, I don't agree with that, since we can definitely afford it, and we put the other kids through expensive education, so it's only fair. Number 2, my daughter has been thinking about what car she wants for her 18th, and what house she's gonna buy when she's older. My husband keeps making comments like, "That's too expensive, you don't need that, and stop acting so spoiled like we have all the money in the world." I think this is totally unfair to her, because it is within the same range as our other two kids. It's not like she's actually getting it right now. She's only thinking about it. I don't understand why he's suddenly trying to deter her when they've always had a great relationship, but it makes me feel used. When I asked him, he said, "I don't want to raise spoiled children," which is an absolutely flimsy excuse since we have always instilled the importance of hard work and being grateful for what you have into our kids. I told him that he needs to stop saying things like that to my daughter because it's obviously unfair and making her feel that there is favoritism when there had previously been none. This didn't stop for a few weeks and got to the point where he was flat out telling her no to a car for her 16th, when it had always been understood that all 3 children get treated the same money-wise. Yesterday, I told him I was separating our finances, as I felt that I could no longer trust him with my money, for the fear that he might use it to favor his kids or try to take money from the savings for my daughter. His only source of money will be from a couple of properties that he has on rent. They don't make all that much, but it is enough for one person to live on. I will continue to provide for our older 2 kids, as I think of them as my own, and they feel the same. He didn't take this well, and blew up at me. He is now not speaking to me, and is sleeping in the guest room. I might tell him that if he doesn't get a job, I will leave, because if he got a job, he would have his own money, and hopefully that will make him more secure or whatever he needs to stop this nonsense. Any advice would be appreciated because I honestly don't understand his agenda. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Sounds like your husband is doing one of two things. 1. He has been siphoning off some money and fears he will be discovered if you start doing things that require more than casual looks at your finances. 2. He wants to end your marriage for unknown reasons. He doesn't want to be the one that says, "I want a divorce." It's a lot easier to just be such an incredible jerk that you will be the one to initiate divorce. He knows you won't put up with his behavior. It's the easier, softer way to get what he wants. Note: number 1 and number 2 may be related. Comment 2. It's this simple. You took on his kids and saw them as your own, but he didn't do the same for you and your children. I don't blame you for the move you made at all to protect your daughter's fair treatment. It sounds like you already know what's going on, but it's shocking to you. As a curious aside, what sort of work do you do? Simply curious. Congratulations on your success. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post, and let me tell you, things have escalated quickly. I've been trying to make sense of everything, and I think I've finally started to piece together the puzzle of my husband's behavior. So, after I separated our finances, my husband became even more distant. He was barely talking to me or my daughter, and it was clear that he was upset about the whole situation. But then 2 days ago, I came home early from work and found him in a heated argument with his daughter, my stepdaughter. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Turns out my stepdaughter had found out about the separate finances and was furious. She accused her dad of playing favorites and not caring about her future. She was shouting about how unfair it was that my daughter might get to go to a prestigious university while she had to settle for less. I was shocked because my stepdaughter had always seemed content with her college choice. But here's where it gets even more complicated. My husband had been secretly funneling money from our joint savings into a separate account for his daughter. He was planning to surprise her with a fund for a postgraduate degree overseas. He wanted her to have the same opportunities as my daughter, but he didn't want to tell anyone until it was all set up. He thought that by discouraging my daughter from expensive choices, he could balance things out without having to explain the financial juggling act he was doing. I was floored. I couldn't believe he would go behind my back like that. It felt like a betrayal, not just to me, but to our family's trust. I confronted him about it, and we had a huge fight. He tried to justify his actions by saying he wanted to give his daughter the best chance at success, but I couldn't get past the deceit. In the midst of all this drama, my son, my husband's son, came home for a visit. He had no idea about the financial issues or the tension in the house. He was excited to tell us about a promotion he'd received at work, but he walked in right in the middle of our argument. It was a mess. He tried to mediate, but emotions were running too high. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my daughter dropped a bombshell. She had been doing some thinking and decided that she didn't want to go to a prestigious university after all. She said she realized that the pressure and expectations were too much for her, and she wanted to attend a local university where she could be closer to family. I was stunned. After all the fighting and tension over her future, she had come to this decision on her own. It was a mature choice, and I was proud of her. But I couldn't help feeling like all the drama had been for nothing. But the real twist came just yesterday. My husband, who had been so adamant about not spoiling the kids, revealed that he had been feeling insecure about not contributing financially to the family. He confessed that he thought if he could provide something significant for his daughter, it would prove his worth. He was afraid that without a financial contribution, he was less of a parent and partner. I was taken aback by his vulnerability. It was a side of him I hadn't seen in a long time. We had a long, emotional talk about our relationship and our family. We agreed to start couples counseling to work through our issues and rebuild trust. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.